Thank you everyone for tuning into today's webinar on Q3 product release highlights. My name is Allison Kim and I'm the marketing coordinator here at Lolla Microsystems. Before I kick it off to our presenter, I just want to run through a few housekeeping items on how the webinar will run through. The session will last for about 30 minutes, and at the end we will have time for a Q&A session. If at any point throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, make sure to submit them in the chat panel and we will get to them at the end. With that said, I would like to introduce today's presenters, Theo Lister, Senior Product Manager here at Lolla. Theo, if you are ready, it's all yours.
All right, brilliant. Thank you for the introduction, Allison, and hello everybody. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and see what we released for our Q3 product release. Funnily enough, it's October the 17th, and it was September the 17th that we released everything. So coming a bit late to the party, but hopefully that means if you had any questions, you had some time to have a look at them and play with them. If not, let me walk you through what we're doing. And also, as I run through what we're planning to look at, so I'll just give a brief recap. I do this every time we show what we've released, just to show how what we actually have released correlates to the different plans that we have had over the past few years and the research we've been doing, just to make sure that everything that we're delivering makes sense, it fits into what we've been seeing and what we've been hearing from the market. And I'll go through the different product areas, some of the things that we've released, and then give a little bit of a sneak peek into what we're looking at, what we're working on, and some of the things that you'll be seeing towards the end of the year, so Q3, when we release in mid-December. So 2018 in review, just to go very quickly through this. I know it's 2019, it's soon to be 2020. This sounds like it might almost be irrelevant, but this is still stuff that we're hearing even this year. I'm sure we'll be hearing it next year. So the fact that user interfaces need to be simple, they need to be in alignment with updated technology standards and the type of technology people are familiar with using at home. So when we're pushing out updates, we're trying not to make them outdated, trying to keep them up to date. Pretty simple stuff, but we hear about it a lot, so it's something we need to stay very close and top off. Stability and reliability, again, people are expecting so much. All this cloud computing, browser-based information means that stuff can load incredibly fast because you've got access to an infinite amount of AWS servers somewhere. And of course, when we're doing things on a desktop, we're a bit more limited, but there are still things we can do to tweak that and make sure that we're keeping on track with expectations of the market. Then lastly, cloud. Already mentioned it, but every firm's looking at or considering or even has a strategy for what they're going to do when cloud hits, how to migrate platforms, how to make sure it's secure. And we want to make sure that we have procedures in place so that we're not the limiting factor in making those decisions. How this corresponds to what we're doing in 2019. So there's three main areas that we've been working on. Lolla Connect is all about us as a third-party software vendor. Of course, we produce a lot of stuff in-house, but the people who are buying our software, they don't just go with us. There's all sorts of different use cases, different technology providers, and we want to try to find ways to make those applications work together and talk together so that our customers don't have to pick up the slack in making everything work. So Lolla Connect is an initiative about connecting with the different vendors in the space and seeing where we can work together to make some interesting things happen. The modern and updated platforms piece, I just spoke about that at length. Let's not go too far into this, but making sure everything's up to date with latest technology standards and market expectations. And then smart documents. That's something that it correlates a little bit to this modern and updated platforms point, but in a different way. So this is all about taking the drafting experience. So particularly for lawyers who have this, say, a Word document in front of them and need to review it, how do we take things closer into their workflow, stop disrupting them, make sure that they can do things as they're working so they're immersed and they stay immersed. And that can apply in multiple different ways. So you see, these are all the different areas that we've historically worked in for our products. So Lolla Desktop, which is an overview of our desktop offerings. You'll see an area here for each of those. And then as we extend beyond as Lolla Connect grows, these are just some of the areas we're looking at. And you'll see spotted along here and there. And that one at the far right is mobile, web, and cloud. Sorry about the image scaling. This is types of places and types of vendors we're looking to work with to deliver more value for our products. Hope I didn't bore you. That's the strategy side of things. That's a lot of the stuff I work on. But of course, then this all dials down and corresponds to the actual stuff that we deliver. So these are some of the things that we've moved forward in terms of our latest Q3 release. And for the create side of things, and this is here is Forte in particular, one of the things that I showed in our Q1 and Q2 updates is some of the information we've been receiving in terms of how the platform should be updated. And we engaged with a design firm who are concentrated solely in user experience to assess our platforms, give us some recommendations. And so this is one of the things that the team has been working on behind the scenes. So as I show you this, there's other stuff happening in the background, but of course, UX design, rehashing a platform takes quite a long time. And rather than deliver that iteratively, confuse things, we're going to have a more staged approach later on, probably at the start of 2020. But for what was delivered in Q3 here, this print and local support section. So here, what's been done is enhancing the print macros on the ribbon for Forte, so allowing configuration of printer trays. So there's some configuration here for printer trays used for each different option on the ribbon, so draft or final, or choose letterhead. And it allows you to set a default printer setting, and this can apply to firms that use effectively all the same printer, but also more configuration over individual printers and options allowing you to set them based on firm defaults or different offices or different groups. On the proofreading side of things, so active drafting is a feature which corresponds very heavily to this concept of smart documents. So this comes from feedback that we've been hearing from the market about the use of task panes in the product. And actually, the UX firm that we engaged with for the Create platform, that's another thing that they pointed out to us, and they independently worked this out from working with our customers, is there's this split in terms of users. Some people really like using a task pane and that feels intuitive to them. And some people just want to jump straight into the document and start messing around with it. So this is something that we're seeing in the proofreading side of things as well. And so in Q1, we got started in it. In Q2, we put more emphasis on Lolla Connect and working on the case research integration side of things. But for Q3, we jumped back to Q1 and added some additional information, additional flavor to what we already delivered for them. So this actually, I will jump out of the presentation and show it off quickly, just to give some instruction, some live information on how this works. But ultimately, it's an extension of the previous active drafting, but taking it to a few extra categories. Up here, this is my Lolla desktop. And for the proofreading side of things here, this show active drafting button, this is where I go for all my active drafting needs. If I click that, it'll analyze the documents. So using the same contract companion proofreading analysis. And then instead of presenting all that information in the task pane, it can mark that up for me in the document here. And we're extending this to not just issues and errors, but also the definitions themselves. So one of the repeat things that lawyers will need to do as they're reviewing contracts like these, sometimes it's not the lawyers, sometimes it's other people, is making sure that all of these definitions, all of these terms that are used are checked and refer accurately to the proper thing. So I can scroll through and see how things work like this. But also, if I need to know the meaning of anything, I can double click it. And it'll open the task pane on the side to show me the other stuff I found, but also it splits the screen. So at the top, I can actually see the meaning of that definition. So as I scroll through, if there's any ambiguity about what's being said, I can double click it and then find out what that's referring to. So that speeds things up. When using a task pane, sometimes it's not as familiar, but running through, looking at something, double clicking it, it hits the mark a little bit closer. And if sometimes like me, you're under time pressure and you really need to just focus on some things in particular, we've added a new setting so that you can turn off some of these things. So if I don't want to look at correct and valid uses of definitions, I can turn that off and then just focus on potential issues. And if there are particular colors that are more difficult to see or might not be showing correctly on the monitor, you can also change those just to get a little bit more control over what the system is showing. And again, still I can double click it, see what it is, and this here is a potential issue that I can then review and change. So that was the main change in terms of the proofreading side of things. And it just reinforces our commitment to smarter drafting, helping people get to the information they need a little bit faster. And for the next quarter's designs, that's all about improving these results, but taking a little bit of a different direction. So for individual users in different jurisdictions, so improving results for Spanish users, improving results for people trying to look at state legislation. And here we have compare. So these are our compare products. And if you've been listening in the news, of course, we're now a much bigger company and we have multiple compare products. So we have Change Pro and we also have Workshare Compare. And it puts us in a very interesting position. And it means that as our development team grows, it means we can develop multiple platforms at the same time. So for Change Pro, we actually released a series of smaller releases in Q3, 2 of them. And their improvements, they include improving the speed and performance of saving PDFs with red lines and attaching them to emails, and just generally reducing the size of PDF files, and also some improved compatibility with the Windows Server 2008 R2 environment, and that's specifically when using the OCR module for PDFs. So lots of speed improvements and focus on PDFs. And Workshare Compare, of course, now that Workshare Compare is a part of our desktop suite of solutions, that means that it's a part of Litera Desktop, it's a part of our desktop full cohesive review of the drafting lifecycle. So the change that we made was making sure that that's available as a part of Litera Desktop. Again, simplifying the user experience for people who have all of our products, people who have multiple products from us, so they know there's one place, that Litera ribbon, that Litera Desktop icon, going straight there for their comparison needs if they have Workshare Compare installed. And it can be added to the Litera Desktop ribbon for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. Again, simplifying user workflow. Basically saying it doesn't matter if you have Litera Change Pro or Workshare Compare as your comparison tool of choice, there'll be the opportunity to have it in there and have it deployed in the same fashion that your users are seeing our other products laid out. And on top of that addition, we've also added some rendering sets, giving users a bit more choice over what's compared and how results are displayed. And previously, when I showed off the active drafting feature, you may not have seen it, it might have gone too quickly, but I did have Workshare Compare on there, as well as Change Pro, actually. So moving into the clean side of things. So one of the things that we've done, and this is generally to unify the product and increase security, we've updated our license server. So instead of creating a single key for both the desktop and server applications. So something to be aware of if you're upgrading, just make sure to check the documentation on that front so that you're all set up for success and deployment in the future. And in terms of feature experience, again, we've been trying to bring the user interface of Metadect Desktop and Metadect Server more closely together. In one way here is the unification of alerts. So the previous situation in version Metadect 4.4 and previously is that you'd have a unique window that appears for unlocking protected files. And if you had for example here, this is a zip with multiple items, each protected with different passwords, that can be a lot of pop-ups over time. And we know that the amount of clicks people have to go through reduces the amount of time they take to the chances of them finishing a task. So here, we've just simplified this into one pop-up. You can insert all of your passwords. We'll tell you whether it's correct or whether you need to retype, because then we won't be able to unzip. unencrypt the password and work out what it is so that the metadata can be cleaned. And in addition, a very similar approach, but this is for choosing what exactly should be cleaned from each file for multiple files. So you can see here we've got Word, Excel, PowerPoint bundled together, and then giving you some more detailed choices over what exactly should be changed. So you can see here the person they want to delete their comments, but accept all track changes, and that's true across the board. So they have this option, and they don't have to go into multiple windows to find this out. And additionally, so this is within Outlook, and this corresponds to our approach to sensitive data handling. So trying to reduce the amount of potential mistakes that are happening as a part of the email workflow. So we've moved forward with that a little bit. So with this is to reduce the amount of accidental email mistakes. There's an option to split emails for BCC'd recipients, and effectively the people that you are sending something to and CC'd will get one email, and the BCC'd will get another email. So that if I am BCC'd and I accidentally choose to reply to something, maybe I think I'm copied instead, I don't have that option to send it to everybody in the chain. So there's no realization on the people in the direct to field that I've blind carbon copied 30 different people. That just leads to huge email chains and potential confusion. So that's an overview of the changes that I've run through just now, and also some of the things that happened in previous quarters. This isn't, you'll see here if you're checking it now, I'm also showing some of the things that are listed for Q4, and I've been mentioning this briefly as we walk through, but there are a few things which our development teams are still working on and did work on throughout the release timeline, and took a little bit longer to deliver, and we'll be looking to release at the end of the year. So you can see here in the clause companion and on the repair segments, there are a few additional features that are being worked on. I'll show a little bit of that right here and now. So repair, this is a part of docx tools companion, and this is a change to the way that the numbering feature works. So the current market release version of docx tools companion has a numbers button. You click that, it assesses the numbering of your document, sees what's wrong, sees what's right, sees how it's structured, and then reforms everything so that it looks correct. And more importantly, the document structure is correct so that you don't break anything as you continue to work on and change the document. One of the things that we found lawyers doing is having an element of distrust towards that. It's a routine that makes quite a lot of changes, quite discrete and nuanced. And honestly, I don't understand document numbering all that well either. So there's a certain area of what is this going to change? What is the intended end product when I run this feature? So this is an intent to create a more guided user experience where instead of making all these changes, we show you, hey, this is what we found. This is everything that we're planning to change. And you can see this step through numbers here. There's one of 35 issues found within this particular list template. You can run through every one of them and see every single paragraph that the product is intending to change before that change is made. Again, what we're hearing from the market is that this will make people more comfortable with using the product and give them more control so they can see what's happening. And then on the clause companion side of things, another thing that we've been getting a lot of input on is that when people save clauses, when people reuse documents, it happens a lot. Sometimes rather than going into your templates or going into the system for precedents, people will just find something they've used before and then switch things around so that it fits the circumstances at hand. I'm not going to talk any more about that really because we did a webinar on that about a month ago. So if you want to know more about that process, please feel free to go and watch that. And this is just some of the updates that we've made. So again, you can find a lot of all these negotiable variable amounts that change from document to document. And here we're giving you the ability within Clause Companion to strike these out, replace them with something else, so that when you're starting, you're getting started much, much faster. And the icons and the pop-ups and things like that we're changing, they're actually a little bit different. So we're rebuilding the user interface. One, so that it presents better on high scaling, high DPI screens. We're seeing so many more advanced technology with higher scaling on the machines. That's one of the things that we need to stay on top of. But also making sure that the UI tools that we're using give us the ability to do really interesting things. So in pop-ups, search within a pop-up, having smart filtering, things like notifications when a new clause comes in, all those types of things that we want to make sure we're able to do in the future because we'll be building on a new platform. So that's a general overview of Q3, and towards the end, a little bit more of our product roadmap and what's coming. So on that front, I think we've got some time left. If you haven't asked a question already, please feel free to. But otherwise, Alison, have we had any questions come in while I was talking?
Yes. The first question we had was about Transact. Was there anything released for Transact in Q3?
Oh yeah, so good points. So I mentioned and alluded to previously that Lolla and Workshare have come together, and I did show Workshare Compare and how that fits into the plans. Of course, Workshare Transact and later also Doxly, both transaction management platforms that sit within the Lolla family of products. I'm keeping this for the time being restricted mostly towards the Lolla desktop applications. So we have been releasing things for Transact, but at the moment, because Transact and Doxly are more web-based, the deployment method is a little bit different to traditional desktop apps. So desktop apps, we've been releasing quarterly for the past year and beyond. Transact and Doxly, they've been releasing a little bit faster. So rather than lumping that in with the Q3 release announcements, we'll announce those separately as they come.
Great, thank you. And then a similar question, when will Change Pro be worked into Workshare Compare?
Again, good question. And you saw previously, as I was running through our Compare products, I labeled the area as Compare, but then showed that we're independently working on both Change Pro and Workshare Compare. So that is our strategy for the time being. We're going to have both products. Both products will sit in with our development teams and continue to be developed. And we are working on that integration between the two of them. So eventually, at one point in the future, there'll be a single product with all the best qualities of both. Ultimately, that will take us up until the end of next year to get everything sorted out. In the short term, though, we're focusing on the highest volume features. So word comparison, making sure that all the richness of both products is consolidated into a single product. And then as we move on, we'll move through the different areas. So Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So we do have a little bit more information on our website about our integration operations, and we're updating that regularly. So if you want to keep on the pulse of that, please feel free to check out our website, where we talk a little bit more in depth about what's happening with those acquisitions of the new products and integrations.
Awesome. And then we have another question. This will be our last one for today. Will there be any updates for Innova?
Yeah, absolutely. So that follows effectively what I just said for Change Pro and Workshare Compare. Our plan for Innova and Forte is very much the same. So building all of that richness of each product into one single platform. So for this release in Q3, the Innova updates that we made were all just ease of life improvements and bug fixes from the development team. So nothing really worth talking. Well, we're always fixing bugs, but it doesn't tend to excite people all that much. But again, we're moving forward with some of these release updates. And for Innova, looking into the early part of next year, that's when we will be taking these two creation platforms together and developing that one unified product. And don't be worried about that. In terms of an upgrade path, we'll make sure that all the right scripts are needed to make sure that that upgrade path is as seamless as possible.
Great. Okay, well, that is all the questions we have for today. Thank you, Theo, for presenting. Before we sign off on today's session, I just want to mention that this webinar is recorded. Afterwards, you will receive a copy to have on hand or to share with colleagues in case they couldn't make it to today's session. And you can also check out all of our past webinars. As Theo mentioned, if you're curious about the one we did last month, you could go into our website under our resources tab or latera.com/webinars to see all of our past webinars as well as our upcoming ones for the end of this month as well as next month. All right, thank you everyone for tuning in today, and thank you, Theo, for hosting.
Okay, yeah, thank you, and thank you everybody for being here. Bye for now.
Thank you.